Alright guys, it is still October 31st and I am back with part 2, the consequences of magic, and I'm going to talk about charms and some witches. So my confirmation verse is Jeremiah 33:19. The word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, and 1 Thessalonians 4:18. Therefore encourage one another with these words. Now some new things that came to mind that I heard in my sleep, that I heard in song in my sleep is croc charms, and also recently someone gifted my daughter some croc charms. I heard I see dead people, and then Venom. So the movie Venom, Venom tattoo, and someone recently showed me some Venom charms that they had. And then something I used to say to my daughter when she was younger, so my older daughter, she's in her 20s, but when she was younger, she'd always want to go out, and I would always tell her, I don't know why you want to go out at night so much, nothing good happens after midnight. And this is something that I continued to tell her, you know, when she was a young adult, like 18 or 19, 20. And so I was like, nothing good happens after midnight, just be at home, you know. And then a song I heard was that one where she says, I go walking after midnight. And then I saw a YouTube short of a girl trying on clothes from Forever 21, and she was just saying how they were not really appropriate for work. Then my son, my older son, recently went back to the mall and was like, hey, did you see Dillard's? They redid the inside and they have all these new things. This is all going to make sense when I get to a dream. I kept being led to the word kitchen over and over, and then Hell's Kitchen and Kitchen Nightmares. So my younger son said, he's a teenager, he was like, oh, I watched Hell's Kitchen and Kitchen Nightmares. And so I was like, what is with all this kitchen stuff? And then I saw the word superpower, and I heard someone say the word superpower. And I remember being in Bible study one time and someone asked, what superpower would I like to have if we could have one? And I just kind of said, I wished I was invisible. This again is going to point back to a dream that I'm going to share. At the hospital where my dad's at, they are celebrating Halloween there, so they have lots of different like dog costume pictures that you can vote for, the dogs dressed up in costumes, but also in their bulletin board it says Witch's Brew. I saw twice today, the car in front of me was a Pathfinder, so a Nissan Pathfinder. Pathfinder is the word that's going to make sense. I heard pray over your food, and this made me remember about this YouTube thing that was going around a year ago maybe, where some women were claiming to be witches, cursing the food that was at the store, hoping that the people would buy it and they would suffer the consequences of the curse, okay? And then also I was led to when there was a commercial at the Super Bowl of the liquid death water, where they actually had a bunch of witches acting like they were cursing the product. Then I heard, or I was led to Strong's Greek 5:17, which means invisible. And let's see what else. I went to a store today and I was looking at some different like headbands, bows. It's kind of one of those stores where you can buy something, it's like $1, or little rings, things like that. But I did see a necklace and earrings and bracelet set, I got the hiccups, that had the evil eye on it. And that reminded me that I also watched a YouTube short of that guy, Kev on Stage. He's a comedian, but he's a Christian comedian. But in this skit, he was acting like, I can't remember, just some hipster kind of person. So he was portraying someone else. And in dressing up like that character, he had a beanie and a blue sweater, and over his blue sweater was just the evil eye all over it. I heard the word I spy, and then I had a dream once where I was sitting on like, think of like a saloon, right? So the top had a railing, and then bottom, you could see some people sitting at a table. And I remember sitting at a table, and the guy on top was kind of pointing at the people down below, telling them like what they were going to be like. And so even though what was told to me doesn't go with this message at all, the person on the top told me, I was like, well, who am I? And then the answer was Luke. Okay. But that part doesn't go with this. There was no scripture from Luke that I'm going to reference here. However, in that dream, there were two people sitting at another table, and I was going to walk past them. I was like, what about those people? And the guy at the top said, those are spiritists. Okay, so people who talk to spirits. So that's where that's going to fit into this message. And then I had given a message before on here about Psalm 21, and I didn't fully give everything in that dream because I didn't know which parts went with that. So even when I gave that message, I left some part out, but at the end I was like, well, okay, I'm being led to just share the stuff I left out. But there were other things in that dream, which when I re-give that message to give the rest of the dream, I'm going to mention part of it here where I saw a piano playing, but no one was playing the piano. And recently, when my dad's been in the hospital, I talked about this. They have a piano that sometimes it plays by itself. So it's playing music and the keys go down, but there's nobody sitting there. So it's just an automatic kind of piano. And at the VA hospital, they have the same. But in that dream that I shared in that Psalm 21 video, I saw in a building a piano that was playing. So that's how those pianos made me remember something from a dream. And then in that same dream, I talked about how the group I was with was trying to get a spirit that was there to leave this place and to remember that the Holy Spirit leads them. I will redo that video soon, so you'll get the full context of that dream there. But again, it's talking about spirits. And then I had another dream where I was at the front door of a house, and there were some people there, kind of like Ghost Adventures kind of thing, where they're trying to determine if a place is haunted or not. And I remember standing there, and I could see in the window someone standing there. Like, I knew it was a spirit, and so I was like, this place is not, like, I don't need to be here, basically. So I left. So again, with spirits, okay? And then my husband and I were watching TV, and they had some new episodes of Unsolved Mysteries up, and he was like, you want to watch one of these? And I really wasn't sure, but then it was like, watch it. So I watched it, and it was about a guy who like talked to spirits, or he went to go see if places were haunted, but he became severely attached to a spirit he called Becky. And so again, it was about talking to spirits. In real life, okay, believe it or don't believe it, in the house I used to live in, my husband had shared with me that he was in the bathroom and he heard a voice, and I'm going to do the voice the way it sounded. The way he said it to me was, hi. And he freaked out. He panicked, and he thought it was me making a silly voice to him, but he heard it, and I was like, that was not me. He said, I know it wasn't you because you were sound asleep. Recently in the move, okay, so we'd already moved basically all of our furniture out of that house, just a couple of pieces, and we were back there making some minor repairs. And I was in my bedroom, so the master bedroom, and my husband was in my son's room, which is on the completely other side of the house. I heard something, and I said, what? And then he said, I didn't say anything, but I heard that too. So both of us in the middle of the day heard something that I thought he said something to me, and I said, what? But it wasn't him, and he heard what I heard too. So again, hearing something weird. I mean, it was creepy. My husband heard a dresser drawer shut, a cabinet shut. things falling down that we had never heard before. And so I want to share that because it goes here again with spirits. Then let me make sure I don't have anything else. Now I'm going to mention all the original things from the original message that go with, you know, obviously updating this. I had seen a bracelet that said good luck. My husband at that time had brought home a box of Lucky Charms cereal, and recently again we brought home the Lucky Charms cereal that had the mini ones. So I was like, we haven't had Lucky Charms cereal in so long, why are we getting this again? Not because I'm saying that cereal is bad, but like our household, the kids don't even crave that cereal. So it was weird that just out of nowhere we were like, oh, let's get them this Lucky Charms. So on the back of that original Lucky Charms box, it said trap. And then I couldn't stop getting the frosted Lucky Charms. They're magically delicious stuck in my head. Now, weirdly, this box of Lucky Charms that I recently bought, no one is eating it. So I think I'm just going to toss it out. I saw the word adoption on this note on a billboard. But recently, I was driving and I looked out my passenger window and the car next to me had the word adoption on like a sticker on their car. Now, 2 of my senior dogs, one being the one that passed away, my dog Bruno, that his leg popped out of socket. I recently told this story to someone a couple days ago, and I'm like, why am I talking about this again? But when it pointed back to this message, it's because I shared it in this message and God was pointing me right back to it. So that dog, when he was alive, fought one of my other dogs, and the one that passed away, his name was Bruno, and he was a pit bull mixed with a boxer. He's not a violent dog. These two, the other one was a young pup who I had an appointment to get him neutered, but his hormones kicked in like 5 days early and they got into a little scuffle. But in doing so, because the other dog was older, his canine tooth came out, and that tooth is going to be what triggered me to remember a dream. Okay. And then I kept seeing a cardboard box then and still now, because originally I was packing because God kept telling me I was going to move. I just didn't know when. And now I keep noticing it because I'm still unpacking boxes at my new house. So I keep seeing the word medium on it. And then I remember my daughter texting me about Teresa Caputo. This was back, I originally gave this message February 28th of this year. And Teresa Caputo was called a Long Island medium, and my daughter, wherever she lived, that lady was going to be nearby. And my daughter called me. She was like, hey, remember you when you used to watch the Long Island medium like a long time ago? And I was like, yes. And then recently I thought about how I used to watch some guy on Netflix. He's a young guy, blonde hair, also speaks to spirits. And then I remember talking to my sister about the part where Saul in the Bible went to go see a medium to talk to Samuel. And I didn't originally include that scripture with this message, but I opened my Bible randomly and I landed. So I was led to open my Bible with my New International, and I actually landed on the part that talked about Samuel visiting a medium. So I'm mentioning that again because I will give that scripture here. I kept noticing Pokemon and seeing Pokemon, and that's going to go back to a dream that I will share in a minute. And then every time, and so like I said, this is where I wrote down the Venom stuff, the new things. But on the original printed one, it says, every time I went to go buy my husband an energy drink, I couldn't help but notice the one called Venom. I saw a keychain with the pink quartz charm on it that looks exactly like the one I drew in my dream journal. Now, mind you, recently I moved and I'm going through boxes because we just kind of threw stuff in boxes. It was last minute for things that I didn't pre-pack. And in doing that, I found this keychain again, which I will toss out, but it'll make sense in the dream. Then I heard on December 22nd, 2022, don't be deceived. And then on December 26th, 2022, I heard The Snake, the Deceiver, a song that I heard. I kept singing it over and over, and even recently saw a Kev on Stage little podcast where him and another guy were joking because they're African American, and they were talking about songs that black guys like that were really meant for white people, and he mentions Careless Whisper by George Michael. Well, I kept writing in this original, or I gave him the original message, that I kept hearing a song, but it wasn't so much the song, it was the title, which was Careless Whisper. I was led to Strong's Greek 538 to deceive, cheat, lead in error. And then a song lyric by BTS called, or the song is called Look Here by BTS, and the lyrics translated to English are, your charms are exploding. I already figured out your pretty charms. I'm the police, pay for your crimes. I'm wishing for some luck today. Also at the gas station, all the lottery tickets thing, it was like test your luck, or it's your lucky day. So things again about luck. So this first dream is, again, I'm reading it off the paper. I remember being at home, but in my dream, it was my dad's house. I was on the front porch and a man came up, someone I apparently knew in my dream, and he says, "So, you have custody of my kids now." I replied, letting him know that it was his mom who dropped them off and signed the paperwork. So she was the person in my dream that actually had custody, not him, but why she signed the custody of the children to me, I have no idea, and I don't even know these people or who they represent. I began to tell him that one of his daughters was having a difficult time with her behavior. He asked me what happened, and I told him she was acting out and crying, but she said she would be fine if she could just have one of her necklaces. When I was telling him this, I began to see what I was telling him. It was weird because I was telling him, but as I was telling him in my dream, I could see this thing like was happening in real time. It's weird. When the girl was finally calming down and she said she needed one of her necklaces her mom gave her, I went to the room where she and her siblings were staying and noticed all her necklaces on a wire rack she had recently hung up. I can't remember the name of the brand, but I went to grab one and I saw a charm that made me say, no. As I began to look at all of the charms, I saw an evil eye charm. I saw some metal pointed charms that reminded me of a dog canine. So it was shaped like a canine tooth, but it was plated in silver. I remember all the charms, or I can't remember all the charms, but every necklace was the same brand, and in my dream they were all charms I had recognized as witchcraft, voodoo or hoodoo, whichever is the right way to say it, those kinds of charms. I recently had a dream where I was at a house and I should have known. I keep saying that there's this YouTube video I used to watch a long time ago of this little girl. She's probably an adult now, but she always had this character named Charlene, and she would always say couch, couches, couches, couches. Like she couldn't say couch correctly, or that was the character. But in this dream, and that's how it's triggering the dream, and I should have known that's why. In the dream, there was this couch in the dream, and I'm standing over by a couch, and a girl comes in and she's like, this place is haunted, and she starts running around putting all these candles, but they're very specific, the Catholic candle that has like the Virgin Mary on it, and she's like putting them different places in my house, and I'm running behind her like, no, I'm not doing this. And I said, this house is not haunted. God already told me that it was my old house. So it's referencing the house that I told you that I'm hearing those, that weird thing, hi, and the slamming of the dresser drawers. So that dream happened recently, maybe last week. And then the last dream I'm going to share, let me turn off the air conditioner because when I started the car again, the air came on and I'm freezing. Okay, so when I originally shared that, I didn't type the dream in there because it was long. So I'm going to read it straight from the journal. And I'll even show you a picture of what I drew in there. All right, deep breath. Let's see. I was walking around in a mall. At some parts of the dream, someone was with me, but I don't remember who. We walked through a store that was similar to Forever 21. And when we left that store, we came to a store in the mall. It was a bigger chain store similar to Dillard's. It was a bigger staple store of the mall. So, you know, where like Dillard's or Sears or JCPenney, like those big stores. It says, at this point, I'm alone. I went in, but this time I don't see any details of the store. It was just dark in there. And I hear someone, just a voice, that says to go into that house. So I'm following directions. Okay. Someone says, it was a man's voice, go into that house. No one is there. No one can see you. Hence the word invisible, and me one day saying that I wished my superpower was being invisible. And then I put, I was invisible. While writing this dream, while I was writing this dream, I heard protected. And I kept seeing the word protection around. So this dream I wrote, just so you guys can have the date. I wish there was a way I could cover other things. It was January 12th, 2023. Okay, that's when I wrote the dream. Back to where I was. I walk in and it's very eclectic. Reminds me of what a stereotypical fortune teller's house, those kinds of vibes. I sit down on the couch to look at some items on the coffee table. I just told a story about my son when my oldest son, when he was little, how he hit his head on the corner of a coffee table. I sit on the couch to look at some of the items on the coffee table. All over the table are different types of stones, beautiful ones. I pick up one that is a light pink color, shaped like this, which I'll show you the picture. It reminds me of pink quartz, but clear and opaque in some spots. While I'm looking at the stones, I hear instructions. Go find the wands and touch them. Rub your hands up and down the wands and I put the stone in my pocket and I go over to the next room. That wall between the living room and what looks like a kitchen. So this is why I kept seeing kitchen, and Hell's Kitchen and Kitchen Nightmares, is only a half wall that comes about 3 to 4 feet. The top part has either beads hanging down or they are spindles like on a staircase. It's not really a kitchen. There is an island with all kind of items on it, like spices, herbs, stones, powders, plants, etc. But no kitchen appliances. I kept seeing on the Amazon truck where it says everything but the kitchen sink, so that's where I kept seeing kitchen too. Before I keep reading, I'm going to show you the quartz. So it was shaped like this. It was like a quartz stone, pink and white. And then I wrote, there is a brick area on the wall that looks like an open fireplace. A fire is going and there is a cauldron hanging there, like the witch's brew that I saw at the hospital. This home belonged to a witch. As I looked around, I finally found 3 wands. They were longer than I thought. I say, you just want me to touch them? And I hear yes. I picked up one and slid my hand up and down each one, then placed them back. Then I heard the door open. The witch was back. She can't see you, I heard. I still slithered along the wall, which, if you listen to my last message, I talked about that girl sliding along the wall trying to find her way. It was very similar to what I was doing, but I could see. The lady just couldn't see me. So I slithered along the wall as she came into the kitchen or the workroom. Once I got to the half wall again, I got behind it, but I wanted to watch. So I kept peering through the beads and the spindles, and I watched. I went to a thrift store and I kept thinking about buying one of those crinkly like skirts, you know, those ones that you would twist up and put in a bag so they'd be like very boho. This makes sense why I wanted it. It's just leading me back to this dream. The witch was wearing a long, flowy skirt that you would twist. She had on a scarf or something around her neck. Before I go, I'm going to show you the cauldron that I saw in my dream that was set into the wall. So I drew it there. She placed a large hobo bag. Something's falling out of here. A large hobo bag on the island, and she was talking to someone. I didn't see a phone, but she probably had one. She tossed in some things from her bag into a cauldron and reached for her wand. As she put it over the cauldron, nothing happened. She even stuck the whole cauldron, the whole wand into the cauldron. Again, nothing happened. She was confused and she was angry, and she said, I have to go. And she stopped talking to whoever it was. Then she grabbed another one and nothing happened. She tried a third time and the same result. She swung around, and that's when I saw her face. So I'm going to describe her face, which is going to sound like I'm just describing like a cartoon image of a witch. Like stereotypical features. I'm getting the word like gypsy in my head right now, okay? So like a gypsy. But imagine like a cartoon witch with like a green face, but she's younger. She doesn't look old and wrinkly or anything like that. But her skin is not green, obviously, but it's like a regular person's skin. And she has exaggerated features, or she has the features that make you think a witch, but it's not over exaggerated. Her skin's not green. She's Caucasian skin, large nose, kind of a pointy featured nose. And she says, who is here? So I begin to creep out of the house. I made it out the door and shut it without making a sound. This is where I recall the outside of the house, just the front door area. The door was wood and with a large handle instead of a knob. There was a small window in the middle of the upper part of the door with tiny bars on it and a wooden panel that opened up for you to see who was at the door. Next to the door was a few vines that covered. I kept seeing the word like ivy or poison ivy, and today when I went to check out at the HEB register, the woman, which I thought was so weird because one, I kept hearing poison ivy, and two, this morning I heard in my head red hair. And when I went to check out, the woman checking out, she had red hair, but she was dressed up like poison ivy from the Batman movies. Anyways, but that's the ivy that was hanging by the door. And I walked backwards slowly down the step and was backing away. Just as I was about to turn and run, I mentioned that song TXT, the Runaway, in the last one. And from the last video to now, I kept hearing run away, run away, run away, which is another lyric from that song. And I thought God was talking to me about running away all the time, the Jonah thing that I have a problem with. But it's here because I was about to run away from this witch. But the door swung open and she looked out the door trying to see who might have been in her house. I think she said, who's there, but I'm not sure. I turned and began to run. This is when I saw my surroundings. It was dark, but I could barely see the outline of the paths and the trees. The voice that had told me what to do told me to throw the crystal stone that I had snuck and stuck in my pocket. told me to throw it. Once it hit the ground, it caused everything to light up like a Pathfinder. But this was different. It was as if everything was lit up by a black light, and all the outlines of the trees, plant lives, and paths were pastel neon colored. Then I saw a little pink creature that sort of reminded me of the pink puffy guy from Pokemon. So that pink round thing. So that's why God kept leading me to Pokemon, so I would remember this dream. I also very badly drew that door that I saw, and that's the ivy, and this is the little step, whatever. Let's see. He begins to run after me, but I'm not scared, but I know I need to run. I think the voice tells me to, but I can't remember. What I do know is that if it catches up to me, I won't be able to leave. Once I threw that stone down, I was visible. I ran and ran until I saw the wide doorway back into the mall. Once I stepped out of that entryway, I looked back and everything was getting dark all over again, and the little pink guy was standing there. He couldn't cross from the Dillard's doorway, let's just call it that, into like the regular area where people would be shopping. He couldn't cross there. He put his hands, I kept seeing Windex too. So he put his little hands on where the glass would be, like clear, but he couldn't touch. So it was very much, he had his little hands touching, like trying to see out. So I could see him, but he couldn't see out to where I was. And it was like I said, it was like he couldn't even see out. Eventually, everything through the glass was black. The rest of the dream was me leaving the mall, finding my car with whoever I was with, and leaving. Now, recently, I heard the words. I wasn't going to share it, but it obviously makes sense here. I heard the words, "The glory of the Lord is upon you." Okay, that's what I heard. Not because I feel like I'm better than anybody. I'm just saying what I heard. But it really just goes back with this dream, because I heard the words "glory of God" in the dream. And that was why I had rubbed, and that was what I had rubbed onto the wands. So I rubbed the glory of God on the wands, and that's why they didn't work. So that is why I heard what I heard. It was in my dream. And I did write this little note, okay, because this is one of the most vivid dreams that I've had. I've had several vivid dreams, but this one was like the first one that was so vivid, and I remembered almost every single detail. It comes to me, that Michael Jackson song, "Do You Remember?" Okay, that's what I kept singing in my head, because this is almost like a memory. It doesn't feel like a dream that I had. When I had this, it felt like I was telling something that was real. It's a very weird thing to say, and I don't think anybody would understand unless it's happened to you. I knew it was a dream, but it felt very real, like a memory. And then I wrote on here that I was being protected, and that because I was invisible. And I wrote on here in my notes that God was letting me remember some things from the spiritual realm. So that's what I wrote. Now I'm going to take a drink and give you all the scripture that goes with all these dreams and all these things. Psalm 58 from my New International. Even from birth, the wicked go astray. From the womb, they are wayward, spreading lies. Their venom is like the venom of a snake, that of a cobra that has stopped its ears, that will not heed to the tune of the charmer, however skillfully the enchanter may be. Break the teeth in their mouths, O God, Lord. Tear out the fangs of those lions. Let them vanish like water that flows away when they draw the bow. Let their arrows fall short. Also reminds me of K-drama I'm watching right now, called The Queen, where the lady can't shoot arrows as well as the other lady, or the other queen. May they be like a slug that melts away as it moves along, like a stillborn child that never sees the sun. Before your pots can feel the heat of the thorns, whether they be green or dry, the wicked will be swept away. The righteous will be glad when they are avenged, when they dip their feet in the blood of the wicked. Then people will say, surely the righteous still are rewarded. Surely there is a God who judges the earth. And I know that this definitely was always right, because I'm always afraid that when I originally give a message, did I not put the right scripture in there or whatever. But from the last video to when I went in the house, my daughter said the word dip to me. Then Isaiah chapter 8, 19 through 22 from my New International. When someone tells you to consult mediums and spiritists who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living? Consult God's instruction and the testimony of warning. If anyone does not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. Distressed and hungry, they will roam through the land. When they are famished, they will become enraged, and looking upward will curse the king of their God. Then they will look toward the earth and see only distress and darkness and fearful gloom, and they will be thrust into utter darkness. And then Leviticus 19:31, do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. Now, I didn't print it out, but I have my Bible with me. And I'm going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 28. And I'm going to skip down to verse 11. When the woman asked, whom shall I bring up for you? Before I read it, when I had said in that thing that I had talked to my sister before about Samuel and Saul and this medium, because I had, watched a lot of YouTube videos before I found my faith, and probably in that conspiracy time where I was in that moment where was I gonna answer God calling for me to see what he's got for me in my life, or keep going down where I was. And I remember thinking or seeing videos where people talk about like, oh, that's not really a spirit, or they don't really call spirits, they're calling demons, things like that. And I was like, well, what about when that medium called Samuel and it really was Samuel? So that was my question. So it's going to make sense with all this, all the other stuff when it talks about spirits and people talking to spirits. So on verse 11, it says, then the woman asked, whom shall I bring up for you? Bring Samuel, he said. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried at the top of her voice and said to Saul, why have you deceived me? You are Saul. The king said to her, don't be afraid. What do you see? The woman said, I see a ghostly figure coming up out of the earth. What does he look like? He asked. An old man wearing a robe is coming up, she said. Then Saul knew it was Samuel, and he bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. Samuel said to Saul, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? I am in great distress, Saul said. The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has departed from me. He no longer answers me, either by prophets or by dreams. So I have called upon you to tell me what to do. Samuel said, why do you consult me now that the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done what he predicted through me. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to one of your neighbors, to David. And that ended at verse, I stopped before 18 started. Then on another day, I randomly opened my Bible and I landed on 1 Chronicles chapter 11, chapter 10, and I'm going to skip down to verses 13 and 14. It says, Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord, and even consulted a medium for guidance, and did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. So that's it for this part 2 about charms and mediums and witches and all the dreams and the stuff that God led me to, and the dreams I had that pointed me to all the scriptures. So always find the light. I will be back with part 3. All right.